Two major things really stuck out to me about this sales report. We'll be talking about both in different videos tonight, but the one that's more important to me personally is the revelation that yes, Mario and Luigi Brothership did indeed sell very well. 1.8 million units, significantly more than I was expecting, actually. I knew it was going to be a million seller, but it was just a matter of just like how much is it selling? Like, how is this going to look? Compared to other Mario RPGs, it's doing reasonably well. It outsold Partners in Time, it outsold Paper Jam already, and I'm sure it's going to go on to be a very popular, beloved game and continue to get sequels. This is important, not just because I really love the game and want to see it do well, but because the narrative going into this was the exact opposite. People were saying the game was bombing, it was a failure, it was a disappointment. The first wave of anti-Mario and Luigi propaganda came from IGN with that 5 out of 10 review score, and people kind of dismissed that as ridiculous and it became a meme. But like the next phase, Operation Pretend the Game Bombed, commenced without really a whole lot of backlash from the wider community. I was talking about this, but a lot of YouTubers were releasing all these crazy statements about Mario and Luigi Brothership that just have no bearing whatsoever. People like Nathaniel Bundy, people like the Lonely Goomba, people like the the Bit Block. People like Demish, they were all coming out and like making these like really wild, crazy statements about how the game like had really bad pacing and how the gameplay was repetitive and how Paper Mario was way better. It was just a gigantic cope session to try and keep people from being excited about the new Mario and Luigi game, because this is the stereotype with the Thousand Year Door fans right now, is that they don't like the fact that Mario and Luigi exists because they see it as an obstacle to getting traditional Paper Mario back. So, like, to them, Mario and Luigi is the reason that the Thousand Year Door 2 never got made. So they're taking it out on a completely unrelated Mario RPG series in order to make themselves feel better, right? Like, it's fine to have favorites. It's fine to love the Thousand Year Door, but like, my issue with this, and this has always been true, is that like they're being overly toxic. How exactly is calling for Mario and Luigi to be canceled a good thing for the community? How dare these games get made? Yeah, forget everyone who loves the games and want to see more of them and want to see the developers like grow and evolve and come up with new ideas and concepts. No. What we need is those resources to be allocated to intelligent systems to create Paper Mario 3. It's just downright ridiculous, and just got like downright absurd at certain points. Going through that initial 2 week period where like YouTubers were seriously trying to manipulate people into thinking this was a bad game and was somehow disappointing. It was a crazy couple of weeks. Like it was almost as bad as Mario Wonder and Tears of the Kingdom. Right? This was like something that you would see like competitors from other Snoy's doing, with the average Nintendo release, right? Just this aggressive downplaying, just toxic behavior that just was completely raining on everyone's experience with something that I believe is going to be remembered as like the all-time greatest Mario RPG. Like, to me, this is a game that should have been celebrated right out of the gate. It should have been acknowledged as a really cool return to form. First Mario and Luigi in 9 years. Okay, this was a huge deal. It proved that Nintendo was willing to like invest in the franchise. They got a great developer on board for it. They got all these great new ideas. They managed to like, make a game that really felt like an evolution of the Mario and Luigi franchise. This was a huge deal. A huge deal. And what happened? Everybody just tried to spit in its face and tried to say it was underwhelming. There's something wrong with it. 5 out of 10. Like they tried to justify IGN's score. Beat 'em ups even went so far as to have like the reviewer on his channel, on his video, trying to damage control the game, like trying to make him make him out to be a normal person with no agenda whatsoever, an IGN employee. Like, really, that's how far the Nintendo community has fallen. In that we have people that are willing to shill for IGN, literally like the name for corruption in video game journalism, right? The most blatant example of everything wrong, well, the most well-known example of everything wrong in video game journalism, IGN, right? Like, to me, this really needs to stop. And seeing what's happened, like, over the turn of the year, seeing how people are like trying to say that like Donkey Kong Country Returns is like the most disappointing re-release ever because the textures aren't like new enough or whatever. It's just, it really needs to stop. And we really do need to start like condemning people who start running rampant with their like weird narratives and their ideas. You know, like the thing with Donkey Kong Country Returns right now is like, oh no, you can't jump on the enemy again in co-op like you could in the Wii version. And it's just a complete non-issue, right? It's just a giant cope. It's like the biggest nitpick I've ever seen. Diddy can get on like Donkey Kong's back whatever he wants in co-op mode. So this idea that people have that like, oh no, you can't play the game like this. It's a complete and total lie and they're just being disingenuous. But like but that's precisely my point, right? Is that like re-releases are getting condemned and hated on for not being new games, while new games like Brothership are like being completely written off and ignored for not being as good as the old games. You know, like it's this really interesting paradox that really needs to be addressed because like the reality of the situation is that these people aren't happy with anything. You know, they can't find any joy in the product. They can't find any joy in what Nintendo is putting out, and yet they keep coming back, almost as if they're just overly critical, like hyper fixated on hitting everything Nintendo does in order to like justify making videos about them. You know, that's kind of how I feel about this. You know, looking at like what Arlo is doing and what Demish is doing, what all these guys are doing, is that like they didn't really have a leg to stand on when it came to Mario and Luigi Brothership at all. And yet they desperately tried to prop up nobodies on Twitter who tried telling us that the game had failed. You know, like the game was failing, that it wasn't selling it well. It was positively disgusting. And going forward, we do need to put a better effort in condemning this kind of behavior. Like I am getting downright tired of it. It's unreasonable. It's unfair to the developers, to the fans, to Nintendo as a whole. Like, why exactly has the Nintendo community evolved in this way? Why exactly do we have to hate on every single game that gets announced and gets released? Like, it really, truly needs to stop.